Coming up on 2020 on ID, a murder trial like you've never heard before, because this one has a soundtrack. An obsessed boss in love with his employee, who said he was directed to kill her husband by angels and demons who sounded like Olivia Newton-John and Barry White.
The defendant, ladies and gentlemen, is serving up an insanity sandwich, and he's serving it with a side of French fried lies.
Was the affair with a dead man's wife just in his head or for real?
They were groping each other. They had a good time.
Did she want her husband dead?
Anyone who looks up the definition of evil would see nothing more than a photograph of Andrea Snyder.
Good men do not do this!
Or was it all a case of hearing angels and demons? Hello and welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. It's a story that starts with murder and turns to claims of manipulation and madness. A man on trial who says he heard the invocations of angels and demons who sounded like pop stars. Then the widow on trial herself. Did she play a role in her husband's murder? In 2012, Elizabeth Vargas first reported on a journey from obsession to insanity. But it all began with a father and his young son and their innocent final goodbye.
For Rusty Snyderman and his son Ian, it is a routine Thursday morning, breakfast with the family. Then the short drive to drop Ian off for a morning of play at the Dunwoody Prep, a daycare center near Atlanta. But on November 18, 2010, Rusty doesn't notice that he's being followed by a man driving a silver van. And 2-year-old Ian has no way of knowing he is saying goodbye to his father for the last time. As Ian and the other children head to the playground, Rusty Snyderman walks back to his car. The gunman opens fire. 3 shots. Another parent, Chris Lang, watches it unfold from his car just a few feet away.
How far apart were the 2 men?
No more than about 6 feet, I'd say. I mean, it was pretty much point-blank range.
And then a final bullet to Rusty Snyderman's neck, an execution in cold blood.
The barrel was either at or right at his skin when fired. There was actually soot deep into the wound from the projectile.
Assistant District Attorney Don Geary interviewed several eyewitnesses.
They thought it was a movie.
A movie?
They were actually looking around for the cameras. Because understand, in that area, that is just totally foreign.
It was almost surreal, the experience, in that there was no chaos or running or yelling or anything. He just walked back to his van, he got in his van. It looked like it was professional.
The killer escapes, leaving Rusty Snyderman gasping for air on the pavement.
Sounded like a gunshot over here.
A cell phone video captures police and ambulances rushing to the scene.
There was a lot of blood everywhere. We knew that, it was probably some vital organs hit. There was no pulse, and he was unresponsive.
But the gunman has slipped away in traffic.
He was last seen driving westbound on Mount Vernon, so we did notify surrounding agencies.
Leaving the community in shock.
The last thing you think about is dropping off your child at school and something like this happened.
It's very, 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 very scary to happen.
Minutes after the shooting, the school calls Rusty's wife, Andrea, telling her there has been an accident. Andrea calls Rusty's parents, Don and Marilyn Snyderman, and strangely, she sounded apologetic.
She said Rusty had been shot, and I'm so sorry.
How did she sound when she was telling you
She was very excited. Her voice was up a high pitch. The words came out real fast.
Did she sound panicky?
No, just really excited.
The police dismiss Andrea as a suspect. 4 days later, they still have no idea who killed Rusty or why. His brother Steve reaches out to the community, offering a reward for information.
I'm here today to speak for my brother who can't speak anymore. Our whole family has lost its brightest light, and we don't know why.
Who would have wanted to kill this outgoing young father? Did Rusty have enemies? A secret life? Maybe there's a clue hidden in his past. Rusty Snyderman grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and graduated from Indiana University with his lifelong friend, Josh Golub.
Rusty always had a lot of friends. That goes to Rusty's personality. You know, Rusty would leave an indelible mark on people. You know, and a lot of people consider Rusty, you know, their best friend. And part of that is Rusty's personality. You know, he had a personality that always would, you know, bring you in.
Josh was with Rusty when he met his future wife, Andrea Greenberg.
Hey, I just met this really great girl, this really cute girl. I just remember how excited he was after meeting her.
Were you surprised when he proposed marriage?
No.
Yeah, they had lived together for 7 years. They were a good team.
She presents very warm, gives you a huge embrace, and seemed very sincere. So, yeah, I had a good feeling about them.
My name is Rusty Snyderman.
Rusty served as best man at Josh's wedding.
It is my sincere hope that your home will be as filled with as much joy and love and laughter as our college apartment.
After Rusty earned an MBA at Harvard, the couple moved to the Atlanta suburbs to start a family.
And how much did Rusty love being a dad?
I've never seen him happier than being a dad. And he was a big kid at heart himself, and he just adored his kids.
He was so natural. He just naturally had the skill to connect with them, and he would sit on the floor and play with them. And, you know, not everyone has that natural ability, but he really did.
At 36 years old, Rusty had a lot to be proud of. He had created a comfortable life for his family as a successful wealth manager and consultant. To their neighbors, Rusty and Andrea appeared to be a happy couple.
They were very, very friendly, wanting to fit into the neighborhood. Just really easy to talk to. Just, you know, nice people. They're the kind of people you want to be your neighbor to move in.
Rusty was thrilled when Andrea took a job at General Electric. It gave him time to develop a new business and spend more time with his son Ian and 5-year-old daughter Sophia.
They missed their mommy during the day. I don't think they argued over the fact that she was working. She always wanted to have something to do, even when she worked for Harvard. She enjoyed working.
In her new position at GE, Andrea worked closely with her new boss, Hemi Newman, a highly paid engineer who supervised 5,000 employees. Attorney Esther Panich has followed the case closely.
He was the smartest man in the room. He had an air about him of arrogance, and he knew best. It was all about Hemi.
Andrea Snyderman caught his eye, and by November 2010, she was spending more and more days on the road with her boss. After business trips took them from Lake Tahoe to the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland, Hemi developed a deep infatuation with Andrea.
Hemi could have been obsessed with Andrea. That doesn't mean Andrea reciprocated the feelings.
She completely denies it.
But in Greenville, South Carolina, bartender Christine Oliveira thought they were more than co-workers.
To me, they looked like a couple, like a newlywed couple, like, you know, out on a date and enjoying themselves. He grabbed her rear end, pressing her to him, and she accepted. And, you know, towards the end, she kissed him. So that made him really happy. And they left kissing each other and embraced.
Back home, Rusty had no idea how intimate their secret relationship had become, or that there was a bizarre connection between the affair and an event that happened just days before he was murdered. Rusty noticed a suspicious man lurking in his backyard. He called 911.
He's running. I think he has a gun in his back pocket, and now he's running away.
In the middle of the call, Rusty paused to console his son.
I know, but I didn't get your water bottle. I'm sorry. I don't know who the hell he is, and I don't want him by my house. He was wearing a hat and earmuffs, black mustache.
Rusty was unaware that this strangely dressed man was a determined killer with a detailed plan to take his life. It was only a matter of time. 8 days later, at the Dunwoody Prep, he would be successful. Rusty Snyderman was dead. December 2010, 4 weeks after Rusty Snyderman was inexplicably gunned down in front of the Dunwoody Prep preschool, police are no closer to finding the identity of the killer.
It was obvious that whoever did the shooting intended for the person to die. It was a brutal killing, and it started out shooting from distance, and then the person went up and, almost a point contact shot to finish him off.
Everyone was thinking professional style hit. So of course people were thinking, is it financial? Was it a business deal that had, gone badly? Was it, a love triangle? Was it an affair?
To find a possible motive for the shooting, police turned to Rusty Snyderman's wife, Andrea. When asked if anybody had a romantic interest in her, she mentions Hemi Newman, Andrea's supervisor at the nearby GE Energy Complex.
Her response was that her boss, Hemi Newman, had made a pass out of her, but it was on a business trip and it was some time ago and nothing else had happened, and dismissed it.
But what Andrea Snyderman didn't tell police was that in fact she and Newman were spending long trips together on the road. Remember, casual observers of the couple thought they were passionately involved with each other.
They went on the dance floor and they were groping each other. They had a good time.
Police say Snyderman steered them away from Newman as a possible suspect.
She never said anything about Hemi Newman to make us believe that she thought he could have anything to do with it.
Indeed, Newman would appear to be an unlikely culprit. He attended Rusty Snyderman's funeral, pouring dirt on the grave and offering condolences to Rusty's parents.
And I saw this one nicely dressed man in a blazer, and I went over to him and he says, "Isn't this a tragedy?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he says, "It's terrible. I don't know how this could be," or something like that.
Meanwhile, detectives make their first breakthrough. Enhanced video from the school's security camera reveals that the getaway vehicle was a late-model Kia Sedona minivan. Police track a Kia van to this Enterprise rental car lot and make a startling discovery. The person who rented the Sedona during the period of the murder was none other than Hemi Newman, Andrea's boss.
That was definitely the break in this case. The van linked to Hemi Newman was the home run or the break that we were waiting for.
On January 4th, investigators summoned Newman to the Dunwoody Police Department for questioning. In his videotaped interrogation, police tell Newman they know he rented the van that was at the scene of the crime.
We got that van on video the day Rusty shot. I'm giving you every opportunity. You've got a heart, you've got a soul. You were there when Rusty got shot. Now, Andy, you were there. You got it, man, huh?
The jig is up. You're our guy.
I don't see how you can place me there. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not there. I don't own a gun. I can't explain the van.
You're going to tell us on stacked Bibles, I did not shoot Rusty.
I was not there. I did not pull the trigger on the gun that shot Rusty.
He was very calm, unusually calm. Hemi Newman was much different than most people who commit murder.
Over the course of the 5-hour interrogation, police make it clear that they believe Newman had a fatal attraction to Andrea Snyderman, that she was the motive for the killing.
He started out in the interview talking about his affection for Miss Snyderman, and as soon as we got into that, we were pretty clear that he was our guy.
She's going on these trips with you. She's a very attractive woman. She's looking pretty. And you gotta feel bad about that. Jealousy gets in the heart. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Jealousy gets in the heart.
Despite his claims of innocence, police are convinced they have their man. Newman is arrested and charged with Rusty Snyderman's murder. Meanwhile, prosecutors strengthen their case. They track Newman's phone records to this man, Jan De Silva. He says he sold a .40 caliber Bersa handgun like this one to Newman just 1 month before the murder.
The guy seemed pretty friendly. He seemed really normal. And just a person, like what he told me, that he just needed a gun for just home defense.
Even more damning, De Silva says Newman contacted him again a month later, this time to try to buy his silence.
He told me that there was a problem with the gun, that he had to get rid of it. He just said to me, like, don't ever have a mistress.
So was Andrea Snyderman the mistress of Hemi Newman? When police put the question to her after his arrest, she says any affair between herself and Hemi Newman was only in his head. But someone else was convinced it was all too real. Newman's wife of 22 years, Relly.
Had she suspected he was cheating before the murder?
Yes. She had suspected he was cheating soon after Andrea started working there. He would take her calls late at night. He would start hiding the phone, turning it over. Same kind of things you read in a magazine, top 10 signs your spouse is cheating. He had them all.
Even though Andrea was a married mother of 2, Hemi's wife was convinced there was something serious between them. She filed for separation. Her lawyer, Esther Panich, uncovered documents that traced an extraordinary amount of communication at all hours between Hemi and Andrea.
What do cell phone records show about the level of contact between Andrea Snyderman and Hemi Newman?
In the 6 months before the murder, there were over 1,400 cell phone calls and texts.
Is it possible they were discussing work?
It's possible, but when the emails say, "I want to marry you," I don't know how many bosses and their employees have that kind of communication.
But does Andrea Snyderman's relationship with Newman have anything to do with her husband's murder? It is the question lawyers will ask when she is under oath in the trial of Hemi Newman.
Andrea Snyderman.
And what she will say on the stand will surprise everyone.
Were you and the defendant romantically involved?
See what's next. The crime appalled the city of Atlanta. A father killed outside a preschool. And high drama at the DeKalb County Courthouse as the man who did it faces trial. Attorneys for accused killer Hemi Newman begin with a stunning admission.
On November the 18th, 2010, Hemi Newman shot and killed Rusty Snyderman. And
Newman pleads not guilty by reason of insanity. He will have the burden of proving to the jury he did not know right from wrong when he pulled the trigger. It was madness that drove him to kill, his attorneys say. Madness and a woman, Rusty Snyderman's wife.
He fell for Andrea. If you want to call it infatuation, if you want to call it love, he fell for her.
Newman tells psychiatrists voices in his head are telling him to do evil things.
I can imagine your reaction when you first heard his story of the angels and demons who appeared to him.
We laughed.
Sounding like Barry White and Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. That was our reaction. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It's more love.
The Barry White demon urged Newman to kill himself. But another voice sounding like Olivia Newton-John told him to kill Rusty Snyderman because Rusty was a danger to his 2 children.
Instead, the angel told him he had to protect the children and he had to kill Rusty.
But defense doctors say the successful engineer was bipolar, deranged by delusions, and finally driven over the edge by a head-over-heels infatuation with Andrea Snyderman.
There is adultery that occurs. It's a huge leap to murder somebody.
You have Hemi who's about to file bankruptcy. You have Hemi who's unhappy with his wife. He wants a change. The only problem is that the life that he wants is being occupied by someone else.
His lawyers paint a harrowing picture of Hemi's childhood, a father who was a survivor of Auschwitz who physically abused his children, and a mother who was largely absent. Prosecutor Don Gary tells the jury there is a simpler explanation.
The man wanted someone else's life, so he killed her husband. He got caught, and all of a sudden he's insane.
Hemi's lawyers say as Hemi and Andrea worked and traveled together, she turned his illness and infatuation to her own purposes.
You think she meant to get him to kill her husband?
Yes,
absolutely. This is clearly a situation here where one person was mentally ill, okay, and the other person was aware of it and was calculating and was manipulative.
Testimony gives to the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yeah. That other person is Rusty's grieving widow, Andrea Snyderman, the star witness in the trial of her husband's killer. And suddenly, she is on the defensive.
Did the defendant ever express his feelings for you?
Yes.
Andrea says Newman wrote her a poem.
The poem insinuated that he thought I was beautiful.
Do you have any idea why the defendant would have these feelings toward you?
I think I'm a pretty nice person. I'm a very caring person.
Were you and the defendant romantically involved?
No.
Prosecutors rattle Andrea with chains of unbusinesslike emails from Hemi.
It's about how you felt when we looked at the stars in Tahoe, when we woke up Friday morning in Denver, when we walked out of the restaurant on Thursday, when you took my hand and nestled your head on my shoulder.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Did what happen?
Did you wake up together in Denver, in Tahoe?
No.
Andrea says she rejected numerous advances by Hemi, but didn't mention them to her husband.
Did you ever tell Rusty about the poem or the defendant's feelings towards you?
No.
Why not?
I really thought that I could handle it.
Hemi even emailed a proposal. Marry me, it says. Think about it. Be with me forever. Andrea says she can explain.
I viewed it very much as a silly boy email. He was being silly and stupid, and in fact, I spoke with him about that email at work in person and told him to stop.
On the stand, she says that she tried to control him and just that anytime he said, I love you or I want to marry you, she just thought, she called it silly male comments. That's ridiculous. If a man who is not your husband says, I want to marry you and I want to raise your children, it should be a giant red flag to anyone.
Andrea admits she cared about Hemi as a friend.
He managed to get me to care about him, and that's actually the point. He was very good at that, very good at manipulating everyone around him to feel bad for him.
Andrea says she allowed Newman into her room at hotels when they traveled together, but says that was before she realized he was stalking her.
Did he stalk you from inside your own room?
Stalking can take on many different meanings.
So that's a yes.
He was there to spend time with me,
In your
evidently.
room? In your room?
Yeah, he did not share a room with me. Was he in my room? He might have been for a little while, but didn't share a room with me.
When the defense attorneys get their turn to question her, they suggest if Hemi was stalking Andrea, she made it easy for him.
The stalker that you've now testified about, you picked him up at the airport.
Yep,
You flew home with him.
that's correct.
You changed seats to sit next to him.
That's how we always traveled.
After a trip to Greenville, South Carolina with Hemi, they have a revealing email exchange in which Andrea says, I now have to repent.
I turned to the second page of that email.
Yep.
Hemi Newman says, please never forget how much I love you. And how did you respond?
I know, but so do other people. I betrayed them all. I'm not trying to deal with that for now, but my burden, not yours.
What happened in Greenville then?
We were holding each other's hands, and that's it. It may sound worse than it is, but to me, that was a betrayal.
So you're repenting in the email, at least, from holding his hand.
Yep.
What did you think when she took the stand?
But if I were her lawyer, I would have flung myself out the window. How he could have let her go up there and not take the fifth, I have no idea.
But what qualities did you see in her on the stand that day?
Combative,
Arrogant.
angry.
Yeah, I mean, the tone of the whole thing was, how dare you challenge me? I mean, the most telling quote of the whole thing was at the end of Don Gary's redirect, when he said, why did you lead the police down the rabbit hole? And she looks at him and says,
Have you seen what's happened to my life?
Have you seen
noticed?
what's happened to Rusty?
and Don, bless his heart, said, have you seen what happened to Rusty?
Have you seen what's happened to Rusty?
Have you noticed what's happened to my life since
I'm done,
Hemi
Judge.
was murdered? Since Hemi murdered my husband?
Were they happily married? Were any of you aware of any sort of bumps in the road in their marriage?
We weren't aware of any bumps in the road. Rusty had such a charisma about him and was so happy and such a pleasure to be around that I don't know if he would have shared that
So he never said anything about Andrea. I suspect she might be seeing
Never.
somebody else.
The suggestion of an affair is one thing, murder is another. When we come back, the courtroom is rocked by revelations about what Andrea knew about her husband's shooting.
That was a bombshell. That was a bombshell.
At that point, did they tell you or indicate to you Rusty was in fact dead?
Yep.
Okay, is that the first time you found out he was dead?
Yep.
And you found out he was shot?
Yep.
Stay with us.
Hemi Newman has admitted to killing Rusty Snyderman. His lawyers say he's not guilty by reason of insanity. Prosecutors disagree. But both sides do agree there's someone else who might share the blame for Rusty's murder. Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
Central to Hemi Newman's trial was the question of his affair with the murder victim's wife, Andrea Snyderman. How much was real? How much had Hemi imagined?
Did Hemi tell you right away that he'd been having an affair with Andrea?
Yes, he would say, I had an affair with her, I think. He would say, we shared the room and we had intimate relations, I think.
But before he'd been brought into custody and decided to plead insanity, Hemi had been more clear.
He said that, quote, she gave in. He never said we had sex. All he said was that she gave in. Okay. And he said that it was great.
Melanie White was the Newmans' realtor and became a close friend of Hemi's. She says that for months before that climactic incident, he had been calling her and obsessing over Andrea.
I quit answering the phone. I was so tired of hearing him whine and moan. He was like a schoolboy. He was infatuated. It was like puppy love.
And when the smitten Hemi took Andrea to London, Melanie White heard all the details.
They were laying on the bed together. They watched a movie. They were groping and making out or whatever. I said, Hemi, you know you shouldn't be doing that. And I really don't want to hear about it. But this infatuation that he had with this woman, it overcame him.
He felt that he and Andrea were like soul mates.
The defense hoped the jury would believe just how overcome Hemi was, arguing in essence that he was crazy in love.
There's nothing wrong with him. He's faking, or in other words, malingering.
The prosecution maintained that the affair proves just the opposite. Not that Hemi was insane, but crazy like a fox in a carefully plotted conspiracy. Both sides take the affair as a given. Even though Andrea Snyderman denies it, 8 other witnesses confirm it.
But nobody was in the bedroom. Nobody saw them having sex when they were traveling on the road.
It's more of the totality of the circumstances. You have witnesses who have no dog in this fight, who said that they saw them groping and making out.
While we don't know the extent of the physical nature of their relationship, the sexual nature of their relationship, there was something inappropriate going on.
Yes.
There's no doubt in your mind adultery was happening.
No doubt in my mind adultery was happening.
And many following the trial wonder if an affair was the only thing Andrea was trying to hide. There are also troubling questions about when she knew that her husband had been shot. She testified that the school only told her there had been an emergency and that Rusty was taken to the hospital. She raced over to the school without first doing what many think would have been natural.
How many times did you call Rusty?
Call Rusty?
Rusty.
0 times.
Why didn't you call Rusty?
Because they just told me something had happened to Rusty. What are the chances that he's going to be answering his cell phone?
They didn't tell you what happened to Rusty.
Is there a question?
Did she look at or seem to you at all uncomfortable to be on the stand?
She looked annoyed. It was really incredible to see someone who should be a grieving widow look aggravated at having to come to the trial of her husband's murderer.
Andrea testified she didn't know her husband had been shot until she got to the hospital at about 11 a.m.
They took me into what I call the death room.
Okay, so they
I
told
sat
you...
in a chair, and someone, I have no idea who they are, came over and said that he came in with multiple gunshot wounds and that he was dead. I don't remember anything they said after that.
Okay, so
I fell to the floor.
You found out at the hospital that Rusty had been shot.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then in the most heartbreaking testimony that has been heard so far, Rusty's father got on the stand.
My name is Donald Snyderman.
And said that Andrea called him at about 9:36 in the morning, and the words that he said shook the courtroom.
Andrea called us, and she called and said Rusty had been shot. She was so sorry, and that she was going to Dunwoody Prep to find out what had happened.
And are you sure that she told you that Rusty had been shot?
Yes, sir.
There was no way to know at that point what had happened to Rusty.
Is it possible that the Snydermans misheard Andrea?
Well, if you don't accept that the Snydermans, who will forever have this statement seared into their brain, her former best friend and a coworker corroborated the same statement.
That was a bombshell. That was a bombshell. That was the first time people in the community really had something concrete to wrap their head around and say, maybe she knew. Maybe she was in on it.
Speculation was further inflamed by the fact that Andrea Snyderman stood to collect $2 million from Rusty's life insurance, a sum that might have been tempting to a financially strapped Hemi Newman.
Do you think Andrea Snyderman had any plans to spend the rest of her life with Hemi Newman?
No.
$2 million later, she's free of her husband, she's free of Hemi Newman.
And her husband, who was a terrific man, is dead, and Hemi, who had his problems but was a good man too, and now his life is ruined, and she has the money.
To quote one of the lawyers in this trial, they believe Andrea Snyderman played Hemi Newman like a yo-yo, manipulated him into committing this murder.
Yes.
When we come back,
this guy's bizarre. This twisted little man.
Both the defense and the prosecution turn up the heat, and not just on the killer. They suggest Andrea might be a black widow, not a grieving one.
He's not crazy. He's a co-conspirator. The demon that he was cheating with. The demon that defiled her marriage.
Andrea Snyderman is an adulterer and a tease and a master manipulator.
See what's next. Is this the face of madness? And is this the face of evil? Those are the questions facing the jury at the trial of Hemi Newman. He's admitted killing Rusty Snyderman, but the central question remains, was Hemi crazy or just crazy in love with Rusty's wife, Andrea? 3 psychiatric witnesses for the defense agree Hemi Newman was insane at the time of the murder.
When he shot Mr. Snyderman, he was going through a manic episode.
He was somewhat odd and had some weird magical thinking.
That he suffered from bipolar disorder and at the time was manic and delusional.
The defense witness, Dr. Tracy Marks, says Andrea also shares some of the blame for what she calls the explosion of madness in Hemi's head.
Whether it was intentional or unintentional was that her interactions with him kind of planted the seed for his delusions.
Prosecutors say there were no delusions, just a methodical, premeditated plot to kill Rusty.
He stalked him. Which gun to use? Well, let me see. Should I stab him? Should I shoot him? Should I run over with the car?
Relly and Hemi had been married for about 22 years when all of a sudden she started noticing, about the time Andrea Snyderman was hired at GE, that Hemi was acting like a man who was being unfaithful. She never saw any signs of any delusions. There was no mention of Barry White or Olivia Newton-John or anything of the like. He behaved normally, albeit very selfishly, like a man who had been caught in an affair. But she saw no signs of any insanity.
And what was happening in Andrea's head? She denies an affair, but even her former close friend Shayna Citron didn't believe her.
Did Andrea admit or deny an affair with her boss at that time after the murder?
Denied it.
When she told you no, did you believe her?
No, but my heart really wanted to believe her.
But you didn't believe her?
No.
Thank you, ma'am.
Citron's testimony led to a jaw-dropping moment of courtroom drama. When she left the stand, Andrea stood and gave her a long, warm hug in front of the jury. But outside the courtroom where the jury couldn't see, Andrea approached her again. Citron's lawyer Jay Abt witnessed what happened next.
She tells her, look, I understand you had to do what you had to do, but now you're going to have to live with what I'm going to do. She says it in an ominous way, and then she gives Shayna another kiss, but this kiss, it was like the kiss of death.
After the courtroom hug, Andrea is barred from the courthouse for improper contact with a witness.
This case is also about one bad, really bad woman, Andrea Snyderman.
Andrea has not been charged with any crime, but as they close their cases, the prosecution and the defense have one thing in common: their scathing accusations against the victim's wife.
The gun in this case was in Hemi's hand, but the trigger, I respectfully suggest, was pulled by Andrea Snyderman.
Hemi didn't hide his crime from Andrea because Andrea already knew.
Adulterer, tease, liar, and master manipulator.
I have never heard words like that used by lawyers in a closing argument.
Ever.
Ever. It was a free-for-all against Andrea.
As for Hemi, the prosecution says he was anything but insane.
Hemi Newman killed Rusty Snyderman because he wanted his wife, because he wanted his money, because he wanted his life. And that makes him guilty, that makes him guilty, that makes him guilty all day, every day, because he is sane and he knew the difference between right and wrong.
So break it down. What's wrong with Hemi Newman?
He was spinning out of control, okay? He's bipolar, which means he has a pattern of very, very high periods and very, very low. And at the point when he met Andrea Snyderman, he was experiencing one of his manic phases, and he became enraptured with her.
District Attorney Robert James mocks any evidence of Hemi's manic episodes.
They would have us believe that he's insane because he's having a good time at the club. And Andrea's doing this dance for him, and she's, and they're groping and they're grinding and they're getting it on and they're kissing and hugging. Now, he's supposed to be insane because he says, isn't it great? Isn't it great? Isn't it great? Yes, it's great. Of course it's great. He's having an affair. He's about to go back to the room and do the horizontal mumbo. Yes, it's great. What man in America wouldn't be like, whoa, I'm about to have sex. It's great. Of course he's having a good time. If that makes him insane, then half the men walking down the street are insane.
He similarly dismisses the description of Hemi's alleged abusive childhood.
Wham, wham, wham. We should all have it so bad. I got smacked with a belt every now and then. Wham, wham, wham.
Both sides end with a passionate plea for justice.
Hemi was used. Hemi was manipulated.
Good men don't sleep with other men's wives. Good men don't do what he did. Good men do not do this.
A year and a half after Rusty was shot dead,
Deputy Moore, would you please bring in the jury, please?
There is a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant as to count 1, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but mentally ill.
It is a win for the prosecution. Hemi Newman will go to prison, not a mental hospital. As the judge gets ready to issue his sentence, Newman stands and for the first time speaks in court.
I'm so sorry for their loss.
Hemi Newman's apology is too little, too late. He is sentenced to life behind bars with no chance ever of parole.
Countless family and friends who saw a person they loved, admired, and respected, who saw him arrested and shamed, charged, and now convicted.
During Hemi's remarks today, prior to sentencing, the one time that he lost his composure and began to cry was when he was talking about himself.
Today he realized, oh my God, I will never get out of this jail.
And shed tears for himself.
Tears that he's never shed for Rusty. Hemi Newman is an evil man. He's evil. Period.
Andrea Snyderman issued a statement saying she was, quote, grateful for and relieved by the verdict, and describing her husband as an amazing man. She has denied any involvement in his murder. But Hemi's lawyers still believe the wrong person is paying the price for Rusty's death.
I think that he was a pawn in her hand, and she's guilty.
You think she belongs in prison?
I do.
I believe she should be charged with murder.
I told the jury that I felt they should change Webster's dictionary so that from this day forward, when you look up evil, you would see a photograph of Andrea Snyderman.
The district attorney won't say if he plans to bring charges against Andrea. He says their investigation into Rusty's murder is ongoing.
If the Dunwoody Police Department and if the Dunwoody daycare did not tell her that her husband had been shot, who else on planet Earth could have informed her that her husband had been shot except for the shooter?
You believe she's guilty of murder?
I believe that she participated in the death of her husband. Now, what I believe and what I can prove are two completely different things at times.
Rusty's family says until they know more about Andrea's role in his death, there is only partial justice.
Do you believe she actually conspired to have Rusty shot and killed?
We don't know how she's involved, but she's involved. And we need to know, that's why this investigation needs to continue. We need to know those answers, and we need to know those answers soon. How can we have any peace when we don't know the truth?
Did any of you ever believe her denial? She continues to maintain to this day that she did not have an affair with Hemi Newman.
No, we don't believe it at all.
We don't believe it at all.
And she's proven in court now that her word isn't good. And no credibility. Nothing she could say now could be taken as the truth.
For them, the pain of their loss remains as powerful as ever.
In my dreams, he comes waltzing through the door, just like he always did.
We miss him. He was the light in our life.
He had so much more to offer the world. The world is so much poorer because he's not here.
And so much poorer, of course, are Rusty's young children, who are now living only with their mother and without a father.
What will you tell Sophia and Ian about their dad?
That he loved them so, he wanted nothing but the best for them. Rusty's motto was to dream big, and I hope that those two will dream big.
How about you, Don?
That he was a good guy. That he was great. And that he loved them.